I know for sure. Policing remains a dangerous profession in America, number one. And number two, we have some great cops in Fairfax County doing some outstanding police work. And I'm glad to say that our two police officers who were shot earlier this afternoon have 9 life-threatening injuries. So that's good news for them and for our agency and for their families and quite frankly for this community who cares so much about public safety. Earlier this afternoon, one of our police officers assigned to our Fair Oaks Patrol District, and I'm joined by the District Commander, Major Carolyn Kinney. I'm joined by our Major Crimes Bureau Commander, Major Liz Melendez. Our police officers were out here conducting traffic enforcement. I've personally watched the body-worn camera footage myself. You can see our police officer with a radar gun, and he's conducting traffic enforcement on this road. A car speeds by him at a high rate of speed. Our police officer gets behind him, activates his emergency equipment. The car pulls over, but not only does he pull over, he pulls over very abruptly and slams on his brakes. So the officer obviously noticed that the driver slammed on his brakes abruptly, but nonetheless he gets out and is conducting what amounts to a normal traffic stop for a traffic violation, speeding. The lone person in the car, who I will refer to as our gunman, who ultimately shoots 2 uniformed Fairfax County police officers, is immediately hostile, immediately argumentative, immediately behaving in a manner inconsistent with what we encounter with a typical motorist. He's combative. He refuses to identify himself. He refuses to produce any identification whatsoever. He does tell the police officer that he is armed. The police officer hears him. As other police officers arrive on the scene, our initial police officer tells the driver, our gunman, to stop reaching for his firearm. His firearm is in a holster attached to a gun belt that our bad guy is wearing over his clothing. As the backup officers arrive, one of the backup officers, a 19-year veteran, interacts with our motorist, with our gunman, tells him to stop reaching, and tries to prevent the gunman, the occupant of the car, from grabbing his gun. The gun comes out of the holster. The driver of the car, our gunman, takes his gun out of the holster and leans back in his driver's seat and immediately opens fire on 2 uniformed Fairfax County police officers who are standing at the driver's side door of the car. There's a 3rd Fairfax County police officer on the scene. He too is in uniform. He too is assigned to patrol in the Fair Oaks District. He sees this deadly encounter unfolding, and he discharges his firearm, killing the gunman who was simultaneously shooting at 2 Fairfax County police officers. The non-fatal rounds strike our police officers in the elbow. They were standing side by side, so it looks like preliminarily the gunshot wounds are to their arms, to their extremities. So they're being treated at local hospitals for non-life-threatening injuries, thank God. So I will pause there and take any questions. Paul Wagner.
Chief, you've seen the video. These officers had body-worn cameras, all 3 of them. Have you seen the footage from all 3 cameras?
Paul, I've seen body-worn cameras not only from all 3 body-worn cameras, but our police officers in Fairfax County also have in-car videos inside their police cars. I've seen that as well. So if I appear to be speaking with a degree of certainty, it's because I am certain. I'm certain that these officers are lucky to be alive. I'm certain that they were fired upon by a gunman whose intention was to kill them. And I'm certain that the bravery exhibited by the 3rd officer on the scene ultimately saved their lives. And thank God for body-worn cameras, because it puts police leadership in a position to speak with certainty about a critical event like an officer-involved shooting. And ultimately, that's what our community wants to hear. They want to know what happened, and they want to know it sooner rather than later. Nothing that I'm communicating to you is something that I think will change in any way, shape, or form.
Chief,
Yes,
Tom,
Tom,
The
good.
injury to his injuries?
The injuries are to both officers' arms.
Chief,
Tom,
Tom,
and then,
Fox
I'm
5.
sorry.
Could you tell folks what these instructions the officer was giving this individual and what he was giving back to them as far as this conflict.
Well, multiple commands to stop reaching for a firearm that's obviously visibly displayed in a holster attached to a gun belt. Multiple requests to identify himself, multiple requests to produce identification, multiple requests to produce some type of registration for the vehicle. We have a body-worn camera release policy, so within 30 days, we will share the entirety of this body camera footage with our community, with you, not only the body-worn camera, but the in-car video. But I've seen it, and I'm just taking a sigh of relief that these officers will live to police this community another day, and we're all very grateful for that.
Anything, Chief? Josh Chaffer.
Josh.
Anything about these officers, their experience, how many years they've been on the force? You talked about the other guy who was here maybe, would you say 18, 19 years?
Yeah.
And anything about your gunmen as well you can share?
So experienced cops, and that's a good question. 19 years of service, Fairfax County, 18 years of service, Fairfax County, and then the youngster of the bunch, 2 or 3 years. Two or three years on the job. Our gunman, and again, he's been pronounced deceased at a local hospital after he fired and struck 2 of our officers. And we're going to know more about him as time goes by. I know he's a local resident. In fact, he lives right down the street. I know he's 36 years old, and we're going to learn more about him, and we'll share that when we get to it.
Chief David Matt Gregory, WC9. I was wondering who takes over the investigation at this point?
Okay, good question. So our Major Crimes Bureau will work hand in glove with the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office. Our Internal Affairs will conduct a concurrent administrative review to ensure that our actions complied with our policy and our general orders. But we'll all work in tandem with each other. The last officer-involved shooting we had in Fairfax County was in September of 2024. We had 1 in that calendar year. This is our first officer-involved shooting in 2025. I'm just glad I'm not in a position where I have to call it more than that.
When will you release the name of the suspect?
We'll release his name when all families are notified, so within a day or so. I think we have a policy associated with that.
Chief, you said one
Soon.
officer had 19 years service, one had 18, the other one 2, 3. Which of those are the officers who are injured today? Which was the one who was able to take down the suspect?
So the 2 officers who were shot non-fatally never discharged their firearms.
Right.
That's how quickly this happened. They were trying to prevent our gunman from taking his gun out of his holster. So their hands were occupied trying to do that de-escalation, trying to restrain him from taking his gun out of his holster. The 3rd officer who discharged his firearm was on the other side of the car. So he was in a position, he had a point of view where he was able to fire his firearm to save the lives of his 2 officers.
We're trying to ascertain which was which. Were the 2
Yeah, we're gonna get to that in due time. If I prematurely notify who did what, I want to make sure the families have an opportunity to hear it from the officers themselves.
What's the time span here? If backup was called in and then arrived, presumably a number of minutes were going by.
It's a matter of minutes, pretty quickly.
So they stopped, and the two officers standing on the driver's side, and they had their weapons out at that point?
No, Paul. So it was one officer by himself, and he was conducting what amounts to as a, and I hate to say routine, because nothing's routine, but he was interacting with this motorist, this gunman, and he was attempting to de-escalate him. So the motorist, our gunman, was acting in a bizarre manner right from the very start. Speeding, slamming on his brakes, being hostile, and you're going to hear what he had to say when I release the body-worn camera footage. He was combative, but our officer was doing a pretty good job of de-escalating him and attempting to communicate with him, but he just wasn't getting anywhere with that communication. By the time the backup officers arrived, our motorist, our gunman, he brought it to another level. When he continued to reach for his firearm, 2 of our officers attempted to prevent him from doing that. They were unsuccessful. The gun comes out of the holster, and he opens fire on these 2 cops.
How close are they to the suspect in that moment?
Yeah, for half the distance from me to you, at the most. They're right at his driver's side door.
Is there anything you could say at this point about perhaps anything else you've learned about the suspect through things that might have been in the car? Anything that you've discovered to this point besides that firearm?
Yeah, our crime scene detectives are here. They're going to go through the car. We're going to get search warrants and examine all the evidence. Virginia State Police, as always, they're here. They showed up to the scene. ATF, they're always the first federal law enforcement agency to show up on a critical scene like this one. I've received calls from Eric Siebert, our newly appointed U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. I received a call from Steve Jensen, who's the newly appointed Assistant Director in charge of the FBI's Baltimore Field Office. So there's a lot of interest in this case, a lot of really just, what do you need and how can we help you? So I appreciate not only our community, but the law enforcement community at large from reaching out to offer assistance.
Presume the gun on top of the car is the gun in question?
Correct.
What kind of a gun is it?
Right behind us.
What kind of a gun is it?
So I'm sorry, we do believe that's the suspect's weapon, correct?
It is, yes. And the question from Paul Wagner is what kind of a gun. I'm just going to describe it as a semi-automatic pistol.
Chief, with recent Diego News, there is any indication that the suspect is under any influence, alcohol or any drug? Maybe?
So there'll be an autopsy, there'll be a toxicology, so I'll be able to answer that question with certainty. He was behaving and acting and communicating in a manner that wasn't normal. It was bizarre. So I don't know if in fact that had anything at all to do with any level of intoxication. There's no immediate signs of intoxication at all, but the toxicology report will eventually tell us that with certainty. Yes, ma'am. You got one?
Oh, no, you answered it.
Okay. Thank you.
Chief.
You're done with me. Okay.
Wait, Chief, I have one more. I noticed the car in that parking lot might have had the back window shattered. Did you notice any part of the investigation further than the car?
No, so I just came from the scene, walked around it a couple times. I haven't seen any back windshields shattered, but we'll go back and take a look.
And then just one more, just the nature of this happening in the afternoon in a busy area, the responsibilities of your officers to make sure they can do their job and keep the community safe.
Yeah, well, it's startling. It's a beautiful April day, and you all probably know we came from Fairfax County High School earlier in the day when two students were in an altercation and one stabbed the other. That's certainly unusual, thank goodness. This is certainly unusual as well, but it just kind of, since the beginning of time in policing, we, particularly in our training academies, we always talk about never considering a traffic stop to be routine or normal or benign, because a speeding traffic stop like this one, captured with a radar gun, turned into a deadly encounter. And again, thank God our police officers are okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The schools went on lockdown, the nearby,
For this incident, I don't know, but we can follow up. I don't know.
Do you have a time in that traffic stop?
We'll get that for you. Okay. Thank you.